Welcome back to the Punch channel. This is Inflection Point, and it is a Battalion Combat Series game that came from the mind of the gamers and is ably published by Multi-Man Publishing. So this is the wrap-up, the finale, and a bit of a mini review, if you will, of the Inflection Point game. I just completed the entry of the Tank Armies scenario. That is one of the, if not the smallest scenarios in the game. So for background, this is a meeting engagement with 3 German formations coming from the north being counterattacked by 4 Soviet formations from the south. And the Soviets are elements of the 1st Tank Army, including the 13th Tank Corps and the 28th Tank Corps, both notionally division-sized units, rather small, and the 131st and the 196th Rifle Divisions, which are fairly straightforward infantry formations. The Germans, for their part, had 16th Panzer Division, a goodly chunk of it, KG-60, a rather small Kampfgruppe, part of 60th Motorized Division, and a fairly decent-sized chunk of 3rd Motorized Division. So it's a meeting engagement, and historically the Soviets did not come off very well, and in this case the actual outcome was, in this particular game, the Germans won, and they won by taking over, by capturing and holding the supply routes A, between these 2 hexes, supply route B, these 2 hexes, and supply route C, between, roughly speaking, Dobrinsky and Ostrov. There was a supply route D going from the this supply hex on the southern border of the game map up to Ostrov, but that was never really in play. That's what happened. The game came down to the final 2 dice rolls, if you will, in the right at the end of the game. The Soviets were competitive, reasonably competitive throughout. Things went back and forth over the final turn, the activations in the final turn. And ultimately, the Soviets were unable to dislodge 16th Panzer from control of Ostrov itself. All they needed to do was control the crossroads, not any of the hexes around it, in order to reap the benefit of the victory conditions. And so, but it came down to, there was a final attack that had could have won the day for the Soviets, or at least reduce the victory conditions to a draw. And you can see from the red first activation and tan second activation movement arrows that the 131st Rifle Division was indeed very active there at the end in attempting to get over and do something about the Germans here. Anyway, very engaging game, very fun to play, quite enjoyed it. Now, I'm going to talk about, so that was the results. I'm going to talk about, first I'm going to talk about the Conz House Rules and the subset that I used and what I think of the rules in general, pros and cons, and subsequent actions. I'm going to talk about statistics in the game, primarily just the various activations that took place among the 3 turns. I'm going to talk about what I think of the scenario overall, and then what I think about the game overall, and then we'll get this video done. So I'm going to segment and come back, and we'll start with the Conz House Rules. So talking about the Conz House Rules, this is a set of house rules written by Claire Conzelman and published in, let's get the zoom, War Diary number 30. That is both a print and online magazine, and you can acquire I'll have a link, of course, in the description below. You can acquire the PDF version of this online in about 5 minutes with a credit card for the price of $8. And it comes with a number of articles, one of which is is this particular article, and I've really quite enjoyed the Conz House Rules. Now, details. I've used a subset of the rules, okay? I've used a subset of the rules. And the reason that I've used a subset instead of all of the rules is that I'm not doing chit draws, right? I am doing kind of an I go, you go. So the side that has the initiative does the first, selects the first chit. They can pick any chit they want, any formation, and they proceed to run that formation's activation. And so in this case, it was Soviets, Germans, etc., 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 right? Okay, there are rules such as random formation activation and assignment of, assignment of air that depend upon having a chit draw mechanism. And so I didn't really feel that was appropriate. So let's see, what did I particularly like? I really enjoyed the second activations rule. That basically says any motorized, mechanized, panzer, armor, whatever formation does not have to do, bear with me, does not have to make this die roll in order to attempt their snafu roll. They get their second activation automatically by dint of being motorized, mechanized, armored, okay, panzer, and so on. So that means that you're going to get a lot more action out of your top flight units. And I saw that happen here, and I'll go over that when I get to statistics. By the same token, infantry do not, they have the same mechanic, but they have to wait to conduct, to attempt to conduct their second activations after all of the motorized, mechanized formations have done theirs. I liked the failure and recovery activations. I thought that went very well. In a failure flip, you get to do a half move. No moves with the headquarters, no moves with the combat trains, but your units can do a half move anyway. And even while recovering fatigue, you can intentionally do a, you can kind of forward plan a recovery activation, and you'll recover 2 fatigue. I rather like that. Major tank fights, you don't just come up, shoot one, do one engagement and call it a day. You actually have the potential to go back and forth until causing multiple step losses potentially, and until one side is either forced, that is a target loss and retreat, will force the issue, or failing that, if you take a both loss, you can choose to stay in the fight. And I rather like that. That seems more, I'll say, more realistic. I did not use, there's a regular attacks rule which allows you to attack the same hex multiple times with regular attacks if you have the units with which to do so. I used that once, I think, maybe. I didn't use it to its full potential. I was planning to use it here in the latter parts of the turn, but 131st was just out of position, never really able to close in effectively, and 196 did not get their second activation. Go figure. Another rule that I underutilized was one called Unit Size Does Matter, which gives you a bump of, I believe it is the number of steps remaining in your unit divided by 2 rounded down, I want to say, is added to your AR when you're doing a, I think it's universal. Give me a second here. I didn't use it to its full extent. Frankly, I forgot. It's a training issue. Unit size does matter. It's used in engagements, engagement with support units. It's used in regular and shock combats. Yeah. Engagements. Nice. And we're back right in the middle of things. I had an alarm come up. That's okay. I'll keep going. So anyway, the unit size does matter. That's nice. I mean, imagine you've got 2 anti-tank guns, and here comes an entire battalion of armor. That size does matter. Even with the dynamics, which I believe I believe that the step loss dynamic for Panzerjägers, for example, for support units, is based on the idea of, okay, all of your infantry units, like 9 battalions, right, in a division, they all get a few guns. And over the course of the day's fight, more guns will go to the point of combat, and thus you could lose the step loss. And of course, step losses are not necessarily linear, but the size does matter. I think it works out fairly well from a conceptual point. The ad hoc combined arms support, which is to say that if you are stacked with, if infantry is stacked with armor, they get to treat the armor as support in an attack. I rather like that. Never got around to consolidating units. Didn't really do air bombardment. The logistics I did, and I quite enjoyed it, which is to say, yeah, the infantry divisions do not get combat trains. The rationale is that they don't have a whole lot that's moving up and down the road, even for a division. Whereas you've got fuel and ammunition and all kinds of things going up and down the road for your motorized, mechanized units, spare parts and whatnot. You got a whole lot more going on. So I thought that was reasonable. I liked it. It reduces the congestion effects of having infantry units in the area, and that I like. So anyway, it for me, the Conz House Rules, I'll put it back up here, visible. The Conz House Rules rub off a lot of the rough edges in the BCS system. Now, consequences. I think that there could be unintended consequences. I think, yeah, the unit size does matter. I don't know that it necessarily properly interacts with all the thinking and play testing that went into how support units work. But obviously, I think if you have a small battalion defending against a big battalion, yeah, that should count for something, and I like the unit size in that respect. The combat arms, I think, is great. I have no problems with that at all. I think the logistics are fine. I think the thing that is most interesting probably is the second activations. It changes the balance much more in favor of motorized, mechanized, armored formations compared to infantry. Infantry becomes slightly weaker because they're operating under the original rules. However, you can get a nice bump, right? Because at the end of the game, I was going to potentially get a first activation and then 2 second activations were in play in this very tightly confined area. So depending on your game, depending on your system, you could see if you've got a lot of infantry, they could kind of beat up, right, on whoever's gone before them. It's a normal consequence of the game, but it's somewhat magnified, I think. Alrighty. Oh, I forgot to mention the Force March, Night March activations for infantry, that is getting their second activation, it costs them a fatigue point. There's no roll. It costs them a fatigue point right up to do that, and that reflects the fact that, hey, these guys are foot cavalry, right? They are marching places. They are not motorized, and so they are naturally going to have additional fatigue for that. I think it's pretty good. So as a consequence of the Conz House Rules, I actually want to go back and play the, I'll call them orthodox BCS rules. I want to give the orthodox BCS rules a shot and use one of the chit draw mechanisms so that I can become somewhat comfortable, and then come back to Kanzi and play the full slate and see where it matters, And I think it's still important to, until such time, and I make no predictions on it, until such time as the Conz House Rules are widely adopted and widely utilized, I think it is still good to get plenty of repetitions in with the full BCS rules, so that you're able to play at events and such. Okay, so that's the Conz House Rules. You know what? I think I will continue on with stats. So let me go stats. The statistics for this, we had 3 turns. This is a 3-turn scenario, and there were 21 first activations, right? Because there are 7 formations. They're all in play every turn. So the final tally was I had 11 full activations, 17 partial activations, and 10 failed activations. 9 of those failed activations were simply being unable, and primarily in the first couple of turns, being unable to make this die roll, right? This kind of die roll, whether it be a 3, or in the case of 196th, they needed to make a, here you go, they needed to make a 5, right? Strangely enough, 131st Rifles did get their second activation in the last turn. They actually rolled a 6. Works out. So, yeah, kind of a broad cross-section. I can say that in the third turn, there were 5 full activations, whereas there had only been 3 on each of the first and second turns. There were 7 partials versus 5 on each of the first 2 turns, and only 2 busted activations, one of which was in fact a first activation. So the number of activations that you get, the total number, and the quality of those activations, I think, is somewhat magnified under Conz House Rules. All right, we'll come back with thoughts on the scenario, and that's where I'll go next. Right, well, let's talk about the scenario. This was the entry of the Tank Army scenario. It's the small scenario, and it's really quite nice. It's a meeting engagement, as I've said before. It's a meeting engagement. I can't say that the forces are roughly in parity. You have to play the Germans and play to their strengths and not their weaknesses, and the Soviets must play to their strengths and not their weaknesses. It's really important to get the infantry into the mix. I had some failed activations that really kept 131st Rifle out of the mix the first 2 turns. They were not terribly helpful, and I think that definitely affected the Soviet performance. But good scenario. It's not a whole lot of units, not a high counter density, which is typical of BCS anyway. But yeah, I think the scenario was great. This is the second time I played it, and I've enjoyed it both times, would willingly do it again. And this is a nice one. I think it works well solo. I think it works well opposed. There is fun to be had by both sides, right? There are attacks to be made by both sides. That is the nature of a meeting engagement, after all. And yeah, so far this is my favorite scenario. I've played Termazin Offensive. I played the Chir battle, at least portions of it, twice, and I played Entry of the Tank Armies. You know, this is so far shaping up to be my favorite scenario. So I've quite enjoyed it. I recommend it. This is probably the one you should start off with. When you first crack open the box here on Inflection Point, whether you are new to BCS, this makes a great intro scenario. I actually think that it makes, in some ways, it is superior to some of the scenarios that I saw in Danger Forward. You don't have, the initiative really doesn't matter that much. All of your forces are on the board, and yeah, I quite like it. I think it's a great thing. You don't have scattered airborne. You don't have beaches in play, right? The variability. Your forces are already on the map, right? It's not as if you get jammed up on the beaches. That really isn't in place. So I think that this makes, in some ways, is superior to the introductory scenarios in Danger Forward. That's in the Battalion S3 magazine, which, by the way, not a knock against those scenarios. They are perfectly fine, and they're actually fun to play as well. But I think this is a very good one. So, okay, overall, Inflection Point. Wow, this is a heck of a game. Current retail price is $112 plus shipping and handling. Copies can be found for somewhat less on various sites. BoardGameGeek can begin to steer you in the right direction for those. And this is 2 games in 1. So let me point out, we've got 2 maps on the table. I folded them funny, right, so that they would be in a small compact area, but it is 2 full-size maps, and this is the Battle of Kalach. I have yet to play the Battle of Kalach. It has a lot more troops, a lot more units, and a lot more activations, and would be, for solo play, would be quite the investment in time, but I'm willing to do it, just not quite yet. You get another map. You get the Chur map, which is a repeat. Bear with me. I do not know. 28, 30. Yeah, it's hard to say. Ostrov. Here we go. The Chur map lines up like this. So there's a very small overlap. It is not meant to actually be utilized with Kalach, with the Kalach maps, but in fact forms the basis for, I think, at least three or four other scenarios. So look at this. It's about 2/3 the size, maybe less, but you get excellent gameplay. And actually, if you look at it compared to the size of the game area, they are somewhat comparable. And you get some great things going on here. So, and you can have it set up at exactly the same time as you have Kalach set up. Also, because these are in different time frames, in very different situations, the counter mixes are different. You know, you don't use, there's no overlap that I recall between the counters you use for the Chur, and the counters that you use for Kalach. There is no overlap. So you can literally have them on the table at the same time, have two different games going, whether you're doing it solo, maybe you have some friends over and somebody's playing, you know, you got a couple friends playing this one, you are playing this one with another friend, you know, you can have yourself a great amount of fun. I don't know whether it was intentional or not that it could be utilized in that mode, but yeah, it can be. In fact, I've had this set up while I had the Chur map set up at home. Two different tables located, and all I have to do is just walk back and forth with my handy dandy rule book, charts, and tweezers, you know. So it works out really well. Great value for money, quality components, quality scenarios, quality research. The BCS rules are awesome. I believe that the Conz House Rules just adds to the mix, right? It gives you a variant set of rules that you can lay on top of BCS and get a game with a significantly different character, significantly different feel, but it's still BCS enough, in my opinion. Now, I've seen other people weigh in with the, you know, this is the Conz House Rules makes it into a different game. Not disagreeing, but it makes it into a different BCS game. It's not BCS. Not quite, once you layer on the Conz House Rules, but I'm happy either way. All right, so that's it. That's a wrap. Entry of the Tank Armies scenario complete. The Germans won. The Soviets almost forced a draw, so it came down as a nail biter in the last activation, last die roll. A bit gamey. But quite enjoyable. So Inflection Point from the gamers by Multiman Publishing. Really quite like it, and I have gotten my money's worth, I think, and more out of this game. So that's my conclusion. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the series. Would love to hear your comments below. Could be comments on anything, you know, how the video series has gone, technique on videos, that's fine. Presentation technique, you know, what you think about the little arrows and whatnot. Short format versus long format videos. Did I miss something? I'm sure I missed rules all over the place. I've attempted to fix and to retcon things as needed as I've discovered issues and as people have pointed them out to me. And by the way, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked the video, and if you're liking what I'm doing enough, I hope you subscribe. I'll see you down the road.